Welcome to our information session today for Omaha Virtual School High School. Today, I really just wanted us to be able to focus on sharing information about our program. And then, like I said, we will answer questions at the end. The goal for you, for participants today, is to really just know and learn more about our format and the expectations of our program. Since we're the only virtual blended school in the state of Nebraska, it's not something that families in our state are used to. So just want to make sure that you're aware of how we run and how we operate, because oftentimes some assumptions can be eliminated. And I want to make sure that families and students are coming to our program knowing fully what they're getting themselves into, which is a great and wonderful opportunity. And then from there, after you gather this information, talk to your learners and your family to determine if Omaha Virtual School is a good fit for you. As you may or may not know, our application window for a January 6th start is open right now until December 13th. And at the end, I will show you where you can apply for that. But some of you may have already applied. Some of you are thinking about applying, but we do have space for a January start. And so hopefully, and then of course we will have space for the fall too. If you're not interested for a January start, you can also be considering us for an August start. We are, like I mentioned before, we're the first K through 12th grade virtual blended school in the state of Nebraska. We operate in a blended format, which means students work at home and come in on site to school. And then they also utilize online curriculum and online live meetings like this. So it's really a blended school and blended in a variety of different ways. We are a program within Omaha Public Schools. So my staff and myself, we are all employees of Omaha Public Schools, and we're all Nebraska certified teachers. Omaha Public Schools provides devices to students in our program. If your student is currently at an Omaha Public Schools school, they more than likely have iPads. Our high school students, we do distribute laptops to our high school students because our learning management system runs a little better on the laptops. So when students come to us from OPS, we will either typically swap out the iPad for the laptop, or some students prefer to keep the iPad and the laptop. And one thing for you to be aware of, while we are a part of Omaha Public Schools, we do use a different curriculum than the traditional schools, because our curriculum is created for the purpose of an online school. So if you think of COVID and nobody was ready for COVID and teachers were trying to figure out how to teach online and how to get curriculum disseminated, our curriculum is made for this environment. So it's fairly seamless. And the last bullet there, school at home. When I've brainstormed with students and staff and current families, how do you describe Omaha Virtual School to someone who doesn't know anything about it? Really, the consensus came down to Omaha Virtual School is doing school, the majority of your school, at home. And I thought that was a good description that made sense. It is interesting to note that we have been in existence for about 9 years. We started our program as a K through 8th grade program, and we added a grade level every year. And we started before COVID. So we were one of the few who knew what to do during that time. So blended learning, students do come on site 1 day a week. That said, in the high school, our 11th and 12th graders are not required to come in person during the week unless they're behind on their coursework or are failing courses. So in our high school, 9th and 10th graders come once a week on Tuesdays. I'll share a schedule in a little bit. They come once a week on Tuesdays, and our juniors and seniors, they engage in their lessons and learning at home and connect on their live online lessons from home. They do have the option to come in person as well. You don't just have to come in if your student is behind or if your learner is behind. We have created a schedule for our high school students where on Thursday mornings, we have in-person support. Students can come in optionally if they want support or just want to get out of their house sometimes. But then we've created a learning lab in the afternoon on Thursday to hang out with peers and just connect with their classmates, because that was a request from our students. So when students come on site, where are we located? Our program is located at the Teacher and Administration Center, 32nd and Cumming. That is a central office building for Omaha Public Schools. Where our middle and high school classrooms are, they are actually, if you look at this picture, our middle and high school classrooms are on the complete opposite end of the building, on the west end of the building, and we have classrooms located in the Career Center building that's attached to the tech building. So blended learning, what does it mean? I said it's school at home, but how does that work? So every single day, the expectation is that your student navigates through our curriculum on Canvas learning management system every single day. We have a pacing guide, and I'll share what that pacing guide looks later. It's very similar to a college syllabus that tells students what lessons and assessments need to be completed every single day of the week. So they need to complete those lessons independently on Canvas. We estimate that is about an hour to an hour and a half a day per course, where they are going through the lessons, the content, taking notes, completing their assessments, doing assignments. Essentially, when we say it's school at home, when a student is at a traditional high school, they're in a 90-minute block, which is an hour and a half for 3 to 4 classes, right? That's essentially what they're asking them to do here. And our program is to still be engaged in learning during that time. However, the beauty of our program is if a student completes a task or is done with that assignment, they don't need to stay in the classroom for that whole duration. So it does save a little bit of time for students, especially if they finish early. So twice a week, they also have scheduled live online lessons on Teams, just like this, but a lot more interactive, where the teacher connects with their class, with the peers, with their students. Usually they are going through the lesson that's on the pacing guide for that day, or especially covering concepts or concerns that students have shared about the content that the teacher can provide some clarity on. Our teachers are very active in looking at how students are performing on the online lessons, the assessments, so they can really respond to students' needs and really tell if there's a certain area where students are getting confused. Attendance is taken during those live online lessons twice a week. Mondays and Wednesdays are the day of those live online lessons, and I'll share with you a visual of the schedule too. And we also have built in our schedule, not just the live online lessons on Monday and Wednesday, but we also have online support sessions available 2 to 3 times a week for students if they have questions. So what does this mean for the student? What do they have to do? They need to have a schedule of some sort at home for when they sit down, wake up, log into the curriculum, and complete their lessons, and when they log into Microsoft Teams for our live online lessons. The beautiful part about our live online lessons on Monday and Wednesdays is they're the same time on Monday and Wednesday, and then we have some on Friday too. So your students will have their schedule, just like if they were in a traditional building. It does not change, so they can work their life around that schedule, but they have to make sure they're completing their lessons for the day and that they're engaging in those live online lessons on Teams. The big piece that is a little different in our program, in a traditional school, a student is talking and communicating face to face during class time. Here, since we have minimal class time, like I said, twice a week, The teachers and students will be emailing and communicating a lot more regularly than they would in a traditional building. So we do actually have some lessons with students early on this is how to send an appropriate email to a teacher. And this is the information you need to include in your email when you have a question so we can help you faster. It really does help if a student is self-motivated to get their work done and is able to, if they can't create a schedule on their own, they can co-create it with their parent or learning coach. But it's especially helpful if they're able to stay on task and follow directions, directions of their learning coach, parent, or guardian, and especially of their teacher. Um, this is school at home. A high school student really has to realize that you still have to do school and you still are being held accountable to do that school. But the majority of the accountability is now on the learning coach or parent to ensure that that work is getting done, and the relationship between the parent and the learner, as well as the teacher. But by doing school at home, you're taking some of the control of the teacher away, and more of that goes on the plate of a learning coach or a parent. And I say that because sometimes high school students are receptive to that, but sometimes they are not. And a lot of a student's success in our program really is dependent upon the structures, the systems, and the accountability that the parent and the learner put in place together. Those are the types of conversations you can be having with your student right now of saying, okay, if you are really interested in doing school at home because the hallways are too crowded at your traditional school or there's too many distractions in the classroom, you need to know that doing Omaha virtual school means that you are answering to me. And when I tell you to get your schoolwork done, you need to get your schoolwork done instead of saying, well, I'll do it tomorrow. Can you tell I have a 15-year-old at home? Um, but those are conversations that will really help you and your learner determine if this is something that will work. Because come high school time, it's essential that that students are earning their credits and passing their classes. Okay. All right. Sorry, I digressed from my slide. Learning coach, or parent or guardian, what does this mean for you? Well, you really need to start having those conversations with your learner at home now. Where is your student going to work and do school? That is going to be a big question during orientation on January 6th. Where's your student going to do their work? If the student answers in my room, parent should say absolutely not. If the student answers on my bed, the parent should answer absolutely not. We will support you in that because we know sometimes that's a difficult conversation, but we highly recommend, just based on our 9 years of experience with this, that especially when a learner is starting out in our program, they need a dedicated space that is their school desk, whether or not that's a countertop at the kitchen, a table, a dining room, or just a table in the living room. They need a place for them to have a structured area to do their work. Oftentimes, more often than not, where we find a student is slipping in their grades and completion of work is when they tend to slip up into the bedroom and do work, and they are not being held accountable or seen that they're getting on their lessons or doing their work. But the other beautiful part about our program learning coaches is you have access to their schedule on Infinite Campus parent portal. You have notifications on Infinite Campus parent portal. So as soon as they're counted absent, you can call them up. If you are working during the day, you are absent to your online lesson, you need to get on it now. You also will have access to all of the curriculum and content, and you will actually be able to see the work that your student is turning in. Parents get notifications when work is turned in on Canvas, but through the Canvas Observer account, learning coaches have access to go in and click on the assignment that your student turned in. If they said, well, I turned it in, you can click on it and be like, you turned in a blank document, or you turned in a sentence and the assignment said an essay. You need to redo it. Of course, our teachers will catch that when they are grading. But that is a part of your role as a learning coach, is to support the teachers and supporting your student in their learning as well. I should tell you, our high school is our highest populated school in our elementary, middle, and high school. We have about 150 students in our program, and we are growing. So we do really rely on, and you'll see that on the bottom bullet, regular communication with our teachers. You know, as a parent of a student in a traditional school, I do not get regular emails or communication from the traditional classroom teacher because their teaching schedule is different. But we highly recommend and really want parent communication with the teachers of, hey, Johnny said he turned in his assignment. I looked, it says it's only one sentence. He said that you said that that's okay, but the prompt says says 5 paragraphs. What should I do? Our teacher will respond and be like, this is what you need to do. So that might not be something that you're accustomed to in the traditional learning environment, but we really know the power of email and communication, and we work to respond to our emails in a timely manner because we know students' progress and your progress as supports for them is delayed if we aren't responding. What else? I mentioned already up above that your learner might need help making a schedule of when they're actually going to complete their work during the day. We have templates. I'm a color-coded person. So we have templates of schedules that we can support families and students with. But when your student isn't required to be connecting live online during a meeting with a teacher, that's when they should be doing their lessons independently through Canvas. When are they going to do that? So creating a schedule of wake up every day at 9, that's fine. You're going to do this class, this class, this class. Essentially recreating a structure or a schedule that we are pulling out from underneath them that they're accustomed to at the traditional building. A traditional high school has a bell and systems and structures in place, excuse me, to support teaching and learning. And that's because developmentally, teenagers don't have those executive functioning skills necessarily. Some do, to do and put some of those structures in place. So when you take them out of a traditional learning environment and have no structure in place for them to learn and a lot more freedom, you've got to figure out a way to create some of those structures at home that works for your student. You cannot just expect them to stay at home and do their schoolwork all day, every day. Some can. So I do not mean to offend, but we highly recommend, and we go through this at our orientation where we require parents to come, build a schedule, talk about a schedule, and we look at the students and say, talk to your parents about school and your schedule. It's required. So I digress again. I apologize. And really, in a traditional learning environment, yes, you have Infinite Campus. You can see if assignments are turned in or not. But your responsibility and role in ensuring that those assignments get turned in, and if they're following the pacing guide and if they're completing their assessments, your responsibility of a learning coach is heightened in our environment. Heightened, what does that mean when you have a high school student? Oftentimes we tell students and families, at least one day a week, maybe twice a week, you need to make an appointment with your learning coach, whether it's after dinner or at breakfast, and go through your courses. Where are you at? What are you doing? How are your assignments? Let's look at the feedback from your teacher, kind of like you would check in with a boss on a one-on-one to make a plan for the week to make sure that your student is staying on pace. Okay. Blended learning at school. So remember, only 9th and 10th graders at Omaha Virtual School High School come in person one day a week. Our 9th and 10th graders come in person on Tuesdays, and I'll show more information on this in a future slide, from 9 a.m. to 3:30. Our schedule is very similar to the traditional school. So they will go through their courses, blocks of each of the courses that they're in, and the teacher really during that time is focusing on ensuring that a student knows and is able to do and complete the skills that is required of them in this course. A lot of our curriculum currently has a handful of multiple choice questions and answers. Well, is that really showing us depth of learning that your student has at home? It's difficult. That's why we really use our live online lessons and our in-person time to have students work in small groups and complete independent writing activities so we know what's going on up here and that they're not just Googling or AIing. their answers. So our teachers work really hard to ensure that we are getting responses and input from students based on what they're learning. We do have small classroom sizes. One reason is because our literal classrooms are somewhat small. So I can fit 25 high school size students top. So the biggest class that we have is of 25 students right now. But sometimes they're a little smaller. And when they're in class, like since we have a smaller class size, each student is seen. You can't hide in the back with your phone or your AirPods in. So when our students are here in person, we want to hear from them. We actually will work to ensure that we're hearing their voice and that they have a voice, and that they are working on those skills when they're in person that they can't do at home alone. So that's what we have them do when they're in person. And a lot of our kiddos really enjoy that time and collaboration and working with their peers. So curriculum, I've talked about our online curriculum. What curriculum do we use? We use Strong Mind curriculum that is embedded into the Canvas learning management system. Canvas is a learning management system that the whole district uses, but some schools are using it more than others. So some of your students might be familiar with Canvas, but also Canvas is used at the University of Nebraska system, UNO, UNL, UNK, Metro Community College. So it's also a great entryway for students to get accustomed to learning online and what they might encounter if they are college bound. Okay, well, I hit all these slides because we're just focusing on high school. More specific information, and remember, I know I'm talking a lot right now, but I will answer questions at the end. More specific information about the high school. So we shifted 2 years ago to a block schedule. This is a little different than what's happening in the traditional buildings. In traditional buildings, students are taking, 7 or 8 courses per semester. And that's a lot. What we found in our experience here is that for a student to balance 7 to 8 courses per semester in our live online environment with a schedule that isn't necessarily structured, it was a lot. Students we found were doing really well in like 3 or 4 courses, and then the others they were just doing okay in. And so in talking to students and in looking in the data, we decided to shift to a block schedule, which means students will take 3 to 4 courses each quarter. So quarter 1, our students will take 3 courses, and then quarter 2, they'll take 4 courses, or 4 and 4. That way, they can focus on lower coursework or lower course load, and it's been easier for our students to do well on all of their courses. How do we do that? Well, that's because 1 quarter equals a semester's worth of work. So there is a faster pace in each course. You're doing a lesson or 2 in every course every day, but you're focusing on 3 to 4 courses instead of 8. So it's the same amount of coursework, but ideally the goal here is quality over quantity. We've found a lot of success with our students. They've really appreciated this, and their grades have shown it as well. But it is a rapid pace. So students, another reason why students need to make sure they're completing their lessons daily, because if you get behind it, it's difficult to get caught up. Okay. All right. So I talked a little bit about the difference between 9th and 10th grade and 11th and 12th grade. So 9th and 10th grade, I just wanted to dig in a little bit more. And if you want to take a picture of this screen, I will send the recording out too. But this is the 9th and 10th grade experience. 9th and 10th graders are here in person on Tuesdays from 9 a.m. to 3:30. They can either pack their lunch, or we have a school lunch. It's a boxed lunch that's provided. There is online and in-person support throughout the week. In the next slide, I'll show a more detailed schedule. And remember, students are required to come on Tuesdays for a full day, but if a student is not on pace or is failing courses, they will be required to come in person on the Thursdays, so they can get individual. pretty much one-on-one support from a teacher so we can get their grades up. So when you're thinking about transportation, since we don't provide transportation in our program, for sure make sure you have transportation worked out for Tuesdays from 9 a.m. to 3:30, but have a plan for Thursdays as well. I also really like to say that new students to our program, I really like them to come to our in-person support on Thursdays, at least the first month, to make sure that they are knowing it and understanding it. And it also really helps them to connect with their classmates and their teachers. This screenshot over here, I can try to blow it up a little bit. This is what one of our pacing guides look like. A screenshot from a pacing guide. So when I said it's similar to a college syllabus, you'll see the day. You'll see the day of the school day, the lesson that needs to be completed, and they're online on Canvas, and then the assessment. So that day, on this August 19th, it's a discussion board and it's a formative assessment. The next day, you can see the lesson is a 1.02. There's no assignment. That is the equivalent of going to school on a Tuesday, and the teacher, you guys do activities, you do lessons, you learn, but there's no homework. But you still have to do the lesson because the next day you do the following lesson and there's a quiz. So this is how our pacing guides are written out for every single course to help keep students on pace and on track. Because as you know, if we're putting a semester's worth of work in an 8-week course, your learner needs to stay on pace and on track. Okay. Here, I'm a very visual person, so here's another visual for you. For the 9th and 10th grade weekly schedule, we do live online lessons in the morning. We start every day at 9 a.m. So online lessons start around 9 a.m. They finish around 12:30. We have a lunch break built in, and then we have online support also built in on Mondays and Wednesdays. So every Monday and every Wednesday, they'll have the same schedule. Live online lessons for English, science, and an elective, and then online support at the end of the day. That online support at the end of the day has been wonderful this year. Students are able to pop in during that online support with their teacher. Think of office hours. If they have a question during the live online lesson, like, hey, I didn't really get this, or I'm stuck on this question. That online support is a time for them to get support from their teacher before the end of the day. Tuesday, there's the in-person day, as I shared. And Thursday, we have in-person support from 9 to noon here up at the TAC building. And again, that will be required if a student is falling behind or if they are failing a course, but also recommended for students to come. We love having them here. We do have a lunchtime on Thursdays too, where we serve lunch or they can pack lunch. And in the afternoon is Learning Lab. Learning Lab is where that's something that our students came up with. They, especially our 11th and 12th graders, they missed coming up to school and wanted an opportunity to come up and hang out with their classmates, but 9th through 12th graders are able to come up. We've done different things, like we did a Minecraft challenge this last week. The week before, I think they watched a movie. And another week during the month, they do clubs. And so we're just trying to really have that Learning Lab time be student driven. But also if a student is behind or struggling, we can support them during that time as well. Fridays, every student has online mentoring. They meet one-on-one with their mentor, which is their advisement teacher, online for about 10 minutes. And then we have an online support in the afternoon on Friday as well. That has really been beneficial for students as they wrap up their weeks. If they're stuck, if they have a question or a problem, they can connect with their teacher online before they go into the weekend. Really, our goal is for students to stay on pace with that pacing guide within the week. So that Friday time is a great opportunity to make sure that your student is on pace. 11th and 12th grade, the schedule is the same, except since my teachers are teaching all day on Tuesday, there's no online lessons on Tuesday. So 11th and 12th grade, they have live online lessons on Monday and Wednesday. Tuesday is open for them to work their fully through the day to work on their lessons for that day. So Tuesday is a day where a learner and a learning coach would really want to make sure we're building in some structure as to when those lessons will be complete. Thursday, again, if your student isn't required to come up or is not coming up in person, Thursday is an open day where the student can structure their schedule to ensure they're getting their lessons done on that day. Friday is similar to 9th and 10th grade, mentoring sessions in the morning and online supports in the afternoon. This question usually comes up and we're just about done. We do have opportunities for students to engage in extracurricular activities. And honestly, that's really participating in the activities or athletics at their neighborhood school. So if your student is within the district and their neighborhood school is Benson, or they're coming to us from Benson, they can still engage and be a part of a sport at that school. We've had a student do ROTC at his Omaha North at his neighborhood school. We really just have to work with the school and our program to ensure that our schedules align. But athletics, absolutely. Your student can still participate in athletics at their neighborhood school. In fact, we have a student on the swim team at Central this year and another one playing basketball, and then a few that play baseball. So as I shared at the beginning, applications are open. What determines their eligibility into Omaha Virtual School? Really, our placement office reviews applications and it's looking across the board at the student, and if and possibly even having conversations with a parent of like, will the student be successful here? We're looking at attendance. We're looking at grades. If your student's attendance is poor, but their grades are doing fine, then that's telling us that they're willing and able to do the work, but there's some sort of a barrier to getting to school. Usually, Omaha Virtual School is a good place for that student. But also really making sure the big one for high school, and I know that I've talked to some of you on the phone, or some of you have talked to our placement administrator. We do not have credit recovery at Omaha Virtual School. So one of the biggest things we're looking at is your student on track for graduation. Have they been passing their courses up to this point and are on track for graduation? A course here and there, one or two courses, it's manageable. But if they are really off track, we don't have a way to get them on track. And so that's oftentimes a concern for families that are applying. Other major considerations, you have to have transportation lined up for your student, especially in 9th and 10th grade. We're requiring them to come in person. If they aren't able to come in person, they aren't eligible to be here. And if they continue to not show up, then we will transfer them back to their neighborhood school. So making sure that you do have a learning coach available and identified for them as our point of contact and that for your students' point of contact. Orientations, I wanted to make sure, and I'll make sure I mention it again, but at the beginning of the semester, if your student gets accepted, our orientation will take place on Monday, January 6th at 9 to noon, looking at my board. Yeah, 9 to noon on Monday, January 6th. And yes, we do require parents to come with their new students. Yeah, and this bottom one, really, we just need you to be able to check your email. We need you to be able to check Infinite Campus and a willingness and an ability to go into Canvas Learning Management System and check on your students and what they're doing. But oftentimes going into Canvas Learning Management System, if you're able to, the power is, it's more meaningful if you're able to sit down with your learner and do it with them and go through it with them, with their login. But sometimes that's not always available. I do have this document that we've created that I can send you after this presentation. Just some considerations about if you're having conversations with yourself or with your significant other or with your learner of hey, is your student able to access the curriculum and content? Our curriculum and content is on grade level. And so sometimes students do really well in a traditional school because they have some additional supports available to them to help them access the content, to understand it, to be able to go through it. We got to make sure that your student is able to to do that. Because if not, it's going to be a struggle, and we can talk through possible supports for them here, but they're limited. Because again, this is school at home. Okay, so I'll shoot that PDF as a follow-up to those of you who are here, along with a recording of our presentation. After this session, I might ask that you put your email address in the chat box so I can do that. Next steps. I'm almost done talking. Take this recording. I can also send the slides to you too. But show other family members, show your learner, because they are probably in school right now, and make sure this is a good fit. Are you going to know if, and can we guarantee a student's success in our program? Nope. There's no guarantee in anything, but we can at least be as forthcoming and open about what our program is and what our program isn't. And we do that not to be mean or rude, but just because, especially in the high school, our learners cannot afford to lose opportunities to earn credits towards graduation. And so just making sure you're having those conversations. If you are outside of the district, some things to consider if your learner does get accepted is we will need birth certificate, proof of residence, immunization records to finalize registration. And if you're inside the district, it's a simple transfer within the district. Our learners and learning coaches will need to attend on that first day of back to school, which is January 6th at our orientation from 9 a.m. to noon. I'm telling families that too, and it will be in the acceptance email to make sure you have time off to be able to get your learner here and to be with your learner. Yeah, the other thing I forgot to mention, since we are part of Omaha Public Schools, I'm trying to anticipate questions. Since we are part of Omaha Public Schools, we follow the Omaha Public Schools calendar. If there's a snow day for Omaha Public Schools, we have a snow day. And so just kind of keeping that in mind. We have the same spring break and all that good stuff. Additional information, some of you may already know, but this is our main number, our main office phone number. Miss Mary, our wonderful secretary, can help and support you with questions that you may have. Our website has some great resources along with the link to the application, which I can show here in a minute. We also are sharing things on our social media as well regularly, just so you can kind of get an idea of who we are and what we do. Our student placement administrator is Amanda Marcinek. That is who you will be getting an email from in regards to an acceptance into our program. She is actually out of the office next week. She will be communicating with families the week of December 16th if your student is eligible or is accepted into our program. Our website, ops.org/OVS, has additional information in this About Us tab. There is a lot of information about Omaha Virtual School right here, and also the tab or the link to apply if you haven't is here in announcements where you can complete the application, and the application is open until December 13th. Here is also Amanda's information and phone number as well. And I think I have covered all of my content. I will take questions in a minute. I'm going to stop the recording so we can have that conversation. If you have questions or if you feel more comfortable to put your questions